Welcome, everyone. We can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. We can begin with public comment. So anyone wishing to address the board can sign in, and there'll be 3 minutes at the podium. We do have one person who is signed in. I believe it is Cindy McNamara, 75 Lewis Road.
Good evening. My name is Cindy McNamara. My husband and I own a small landscaping company, and by small I mean it's just the two of us. I'm here tonight to discuss the landscaper registration law that takes effect on January 1st. I spoke at both public hearings, but since it hasn't gone into effect yet and there's a new board and new legal counsel, I'm hoping there might be a chance to amend or repeal it. I've stated from the outset and continue to maintain that a law that specifically targets a single industry is wrong. This registration law should encompass all home improvement contractors or none at all. Why should the guy who cuts the grass have to jump through more hoops and pay more money than the guy who cleans the pool? A lot of landscapers I've spoken to still don't understand that they need the county license to work in Southampton Village, as the first sentence on the Suffolk County Home Improvement License application states that it's not valid in the Township of Southampton. Some of them spoke at the hearings for the registration law, asking that at the very least, Southampton Village enter into an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Southampton to accept the town license. Southampton and Sagaponack are currently the only two villages in the town of Southampton that do not accept the Southampton town license. Like many other local landscapers, we currently only hold a town license. We currently have a single maintenance account in the village. So I looked into what it would cost us to comply with the Southampton Village landscaper registration law. In order to get our $75 sticker from the village, we would need to pay a $200 application fee to the county, fill out a 27-page form, go to Hauppauge, take a test on Suffolk County Code Chapter 563 in New York State Business Law. After we pass that test, we need to pay the county $400 for a 2-year business registration and $100 for the Home Improvement Contractors Restitution Fund. So $775 plus at least one trip to Hauppauge to take care of one lawn in Southampton Village legally. It's not worth it, and that's why this law receives support from large companies. It will drive out the smaller companies like mine that can't take the added time and expense to comply. In contrast, the Southampton town license is $200 for 2 years. I urge you to look into an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Southampton for a home improvement license, like nearly every other village in the town has done. Not only will it greatly help small businesses like ours, but when a Southampton Village resident has a complaint against a contractor, they can go to Town Hall right here in the village, where their complaint will be heard by Southampton town residents instead of going all the way to Hauppauge. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would wish to come forward? Okay. We do not have any board presentations tonight, so we can move forward with discussion items. The first item will be the capital purchase, additional items for the dishwasher install.
Okay, there's a addendum into your folder there that discusses the soil table, faucet sprayer nozzle, clean table, and the installation. As the board knows, 2 meetings ago, you adopted a capital purchase of a commercial dishwasher. Upon install of that commercial dishwasher, it was realized that the tables next to it, the clean table and the dry table, didn't fit. They had to remove those, and these 2 items are necessary to complete the appropriate kitchen, as we talked about, so that they could do commercial, have a commercial kitchen in the firehouse. If there is no questions, I would entertain a motion to expend $2,120 out of capital reserve, subject to permissive referendum.
If there's no discussions or questions, I'll make that move to go on. Anybody have any further questions about it?
Fine by me.
Okay. I mean, you recall we're converting this to commercial, so everybody remember? Okay. Cool, all right,
So
so
is-
then I move to,
Motion, second.
Second.
Trustee Yashtremski.
aye.
Trustee Allen.
Aye.
Mayor Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Parish.
Aye.
Trustee Polaro.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Russell. The second discussion item is the Pirates concert bid.
The Pirates concert bid was due to be opened last Thursday. There were no bids submitted. In speaking to the architect who's overseeing, Paul Rogers, who's overseeing the project, there are two active contractors who are working through this relatively complex bid. They felt as though it would be rushed for them to put a bid in the time that was allotted. We are not allowed to just extend the submission date. What we need to do is essentially, there were no bids, therefore we're going out to bid once again. Later in the packet, there's a resolution to go out to bid, and it'll be a submission date in mid-November. And both contractors believe that they have sufficient time and they're far enough along to submit a bid for Phase 1.
The last time we had 3 bids. Three people come to us.
We did. This is a different, slightly different bid because of the fact that we are providing the materials. And a lot of the markup for, contractors is in kind of the markup of the fact that they also purchase the materials and put a surcharge on top of it. So it may be not as interesting to those who are really looking to do what I'll call the municipal grab. Yes.
And also, there are 2 contractors who have offered in-kind services.
Yes, that is part of the,
Probably another reason why they're...
Yeah.
And are the 2 in-kind services, are they willing to share their names with us at this time, or are they waiting till...
Right.
Well, thank you very much for your contributions.
Okay. That's all I have on that. It was just for information.
Thank you, Russell. Is there anything else we can do to improve the bid process? Any other suggestions you might provide?
No, I think that the window we provided was relatively short in hopes that we could, get this moving before frost in the winter, took place. We were very ambitious, so I think, in essence, we're now giving the sufficient amount of time, technically by going out to bid twice, as opposed to just having a longer period for the bids to come in the first time. Both of these potential bidders did go to the site visit. It wasn't required, but it was recommended. They actually walked the site. They actually looked at the materials we had. So they're very active in the process. They just needed a little more time. So I think we were ambitious, hoping that they could, that someone could put a bid together in that short period of time.
And where do we advertise or publish our bids?
It's published, through a nationwide bid process, as well as locally. So there's professional organizations that Paul Rogers sends it through.
Okay, thank you.
So hypothetically, if we get someone to get a bid that is good and we move forward, how long are we looking for Phase 1 approximately? If they start mid-November, we get a bid out, what's the process once the bid goes out? We were thinking mid-November we get one back, or it goes out to bid then?
No. What would happen is we would award the bid. We would then need to, get the materials and set a, time frame as to when we would start. I think it would be important that we bring the committee back together in the process of awarding the bid, interviewing the people who have bid on the process, because I think it's, as we learned the first time we went out to bid, I think it's important that we fully vet the people that are coming in. Our hopes is to have it in kind of a closed-in state before, we get snow or those types of things. But again, we're mid-November. Sometimes we get early snow. So I think it would be weather, kind of based upon weather.
We could have some type of action possibly if things go smoothly in November?
By end of November,
By end of
yeah, I
November,
would say.
December?
Yeah, first of December is more realistic, so if the bid opening date, I think, on the next one is, I don't have it here, but I think it's the 14th of November.
Okay.
We would probably award it at our second meeting in November, and then it would probably take a couple of weeks for them to, start to, see, before you'd see something at the site.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there any idea of how long that first phase, would it be done in a few months, or just, it's one of the things you can't answer? I'm
You
just
can't
trying to
answer
get-
really because of weather, but I think, weather, if you had a mild, weather,
Right.
I would say, maybe 45, 60 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that would be finished, and then we go on to phase two.
Right.
And when does the bid process start for phase two then?
Probably, immediately after we accept this bid, because I think, all of it's contingent upon one another. So I don't think we wait until phase one is done before we go out to bid on phase two. I think it all ties in, almost in a laddering effect, not
And our
necessarily.
village would be doing some things with electrical and things like that. so that
Correct,
would
we'd be
help
doing some
speed the bid
in-kind,
process, yeah.
yes, we'd be doing some in-kind work as well.
Well, it's good to know that we can possibly get this moving if things go well, and then have another bid going out as soon as we get one in. Thanks.
Do any other board members have any comments? Okay, so with that said, Ross, the third discussion item is the USA Endurance Events, the Women's Half Marathon.
Okay. So, Ms. Yarber, who was at our last board meeting, as we requested, did come back and send a number of items. There's a letter attached. I'll try to summarize what they're trying to do. They did share with us an expense sheet, which I'll go over in a minute. After speaking with Lieutenant Wetter and Chief Cummings, they believe, in working with the police department, if the board were to be in favor of running a marathon, the best date for the police department is Saturday, May 30th. Memorial Day is early this year. It is the weekend before this weekend, so it would be the first weekend after Memorial Day. They are looking to really start to move on, registration as soon as possible. They are looking to pay some upfront costs or retainer as you will, if we were to move forward. We gave them an estimate of about $20,000, $21,000 for village costs that would be reimbursable. They also are considering putting a considerable amount of money aside in advance for the charity. And as you can see here, they did supply a financial statement from a race that they ran in Palm Desert. Total expenses of $562,854, and a net to the beneficiary of $17,000 to the local charity in Palm Desert. So, again, Ms. Yarder is looking to move as quickly as the board would be willing to move. You know that running a marathon is a toll on the village. And again, it's the board's discretion as to whether or not they feel it would be a benefit to our village.
Thank you, Russell. I would like to share my take and then get some feedback from the board. As an avid runner, this is something I get very excited about. We do have additional races and other events here. I would like to do a little more research on this to just better understand the cost to the Southampton Village Police Department. Of course, this would be great as far as bringing business, filling our hotels, bringing business to our local merchants. But at the same time, we've got to weigh the expense not only to our police department, but also to our residents who are very patient and gracious when we host other charity events and other races. So my take would be just to do a bit more research prior to moving forward. I love the event, but don't want to exhaust our own resources for another a race, and so ultimately I'm open to it, but at the same time would like to do a bit more research first. So that's my take, but would love to turn this over to the board to hear some more feedback if we've gotten any.
The other thing I want to add is that generally, we also have volunteers. Our volunteer ambulance obviously would be on call and would be along the race, so it would be their time and effort as well. Again, they're volunteers, so we don't charge the participant for their service, but it is another day for them to have to find volunteers to man the race course and be at the finish line as well.
What's the largest event we have that time of year? What's when it really starts?
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Nothing to that scale.
Right, nothing
obviously,
to that
but-
scale that early that I'm aware of.
They're looking to raise close to $500,000. We know what their costs were when they're at, 2,400 racers and everything. It'd be interesting to see kind of a breakdown of what they think their costs would be here and how much. I mean, I do like the fact that they're willing to pay the charity up front, no matter what side they come out on. So, I mean, that would be beneficial to whichever charity would be selected. But I, too, think that more information is needed. I think that, it's very taxing on the village to have this and to have it so early on in the season. We will have just really kind of gotten in the swing of things with Memorial Day and our TCOs. As you said, it's the volunteer ambulance department as well as then the fire department will probably need to be, at least part of them, Rich, would have to be on site as well or available just in case.
Our beaches are also open on weekends
Our
now.
beaches, beaches will be open on weekends. That takes time and effort. And also traffic will be an issue, especially if the course brings them down, Meadow Lane, which is where they do. I think that could be an issue as well. I know that they're willing to look at different routes to kind of make it less problematic, but I think it's something that we definitely want to look at. And plus, we also have the Hamptons Marathon in the fall. Does that mean we want to do one in the spring and one in the fall as well? And we know what that does to the village and the village.
Right. We've learned from that firsthand. Chief, would you mind any comments? I believe you spoke with the woman, right? The coordinator? You and Lieutenant Wetter?
I actually think this will be much easier to do for us on the full marathon because it's only one loop. They're going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and most of the people will be done by 11. So I think that, and we can probably do it in almost entirely, if not entirely, with just our police department. We don't have to, probably won't have to get any outside help. And as the runners go through the beginning of the route, we can pull the officers. So I think it will be much less impact. And
Right, because the Hamptons Marathon, because of the length of it, it goes around. So
right,
this is just
and
this is one shot and done.
We're set up at 7 in the morning, and some of the police officers are in at 5, and we staff it entirely until 2 o'clock. And this, I can't imagine we would be still doing anything past noon. So I think this would be much less expensive for us, much less taxing, and I don't think it would be bad for the village. And I mean, I think it would inconvenience some of the residents, but I don't think the influx into the business district would be a bad thing. If 10% of the people stayed around, you'd have 200 more people in the business district.
When the board heard the presentation from Ms. Yarborough before, though, we had all expressed moving the date up to May 2nd, the earlier the better, because the village is less full and the businesses are less busy, and May 2nd would be a nice pull. Did you discuss any of the
Hiring
other dates?
that's
seasonal
the
staff
staffing.
before May 15th.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
really the staffing issue. Seasons don't come on yet.
That's kind of our, it's a civil service thing for us. It's not a thing.
And they're usually not ready either.
No, plus our part-timers are either college students or high school, and they're not going to be out of school.
So you can only do this with the TCO part-time help,
Well, I mean, we're going to have police officers, but they add to the expense.
and they can't pay that expense.
Well, they can. I don't think it'll be, I mean, I know they're going to contribute $15,000.
Yeah.
I didn't do the cost breakdown, but I don't think it'll be more than that, even if I use almost all police officers, since it'll probably be a 4-hour day for them.
Hampton's Marathon came to about 21,000, a little higher, yeah, maybe 22, I think it was.
Yeah, but I have every single police officer in the police department working at least 8 hours for the Hamptons Marathon. So this will probably be a half a day, and I may not even need the whole police department.
So if you had a choice of the two going forward, which one would you think would be easier to,
I would reserve judgment till we do this if we're going to do it, but a half marathon, regardless of who organizes it, is easier than a full marathon. So
fair enough.
that's just what I have to offer on that.
Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
They have an extensive expense sheet here, but
And Russell, is there a specific deadline where they need to hear back? I know they'd like to hear back from us sooner than later, but is there a hard deadline?
I'd have to believe that, she, I know she was looking for an answer tonight. I can tell the board's not, ready for that. I don't think they can go past the 14th of November, knowing the lead time that they need to order, the things that they need to order in order to have the marathon go. So I can't see that date would work for them if we went past our November 14th meeting.
I mean, I know there's concerns we can still check out, but personally, I wouldn't have a problem giving it a shot. I was around with the gentleman and the lady in the audience for the last one with the Hamptons, which we did, and that was a large undertaking. But, we agreed to give it a shot to see what it was. But now we have, and there were some misgivings about that. Knowing the area they were coming from, we heard about the issues and the congestion with that, but we still gave it a shot. I like the idea that now we have hindsight being 20/20. The chief and the department do know what's required for that larger one. This is clearly a fraction of it. So again, I know whatever we need to get some data, but I don't have an issue with giving it a shot.
I'd like to see an earlier date, and I'd be more willing to give it a shot.
Just curious on some other feedback here.
Oh, I know it'll be good for the village because the Hamptons Half Marathon was a great weekend. I did get some emails, I think we all did, from residents, saying that it is a inconvenience. To the chief's point, the half marathon gets it done quicker. People will be here probably for 2 days because they will be coming in and they will be spending time. They're all from all out the country in the Northeast. So looking at it from what Chief says, I sort of have a different outlook on it, not being against it like I was before I walked in here. So, it makes it a little bit easier knowing that it's a half marathon. I wasn't really clear about it being only a half.
I like what the chief says. I do understand about wanting it earlier. I think that was one thing that I was pushing for as well. But if we're not going to have the staff to do it earlier, then I think that makes it much harder. Again, I do think bringing people in is wonderful for the business district. I just want to make sure that we don't, tax our residents and the village. But again, as Chief said, if it's the half marathon, it can be done in 4 hours, and they're, doing it early, then maybe that is. And if it doesn't keep roads closed, then, people can get out of their homes and everything without too much inconvenience. Again, 2,000 people, that's, if it is 10% staying around here, that's 200 more people walking around and buying. I do know that they want to collect the bags and stuff in the village, and hopefully that means 2,000 people around the village that have at least got to stop in.
It's going to be more than 2,000, there's family members, things like that.
Things like that, so yeah.
So it will be more.
It will be, so that could be good.
You do have an extensive PR setup, definitely.
Yeah.
You just point up leading up to it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I think what we should do is, I do like the 30th as a date, given that it's more of a quieter weekend here. So I do like the additional visitors. Russell, I think we should just get on the phone with Leanne, the race director, just confirm a few things. And then I would like to do maybe 1 or 2 reference checks as well, just to see how the other villages or municipalities, how they found it. We'll do that, and then we can push this out to the next meeting and then make a final decision at that meeting. So I think that's how we should.
Yeah, we should
forward.
see, we should see also that, because I know they wanted, in the letter, it says they wanted to open up registration on October 21st. So see what their thoughts are, because the 14th, that means they'd have to open it up after that. And they were hoping to close by then.
Right.
Because they wanted to open it up on the 21st of October and then go till the November 8th for 3 weeks. So
I did speak with her, or
Okay.
actually Eileen spoke with her today,
Okay.
and let her know that there was the possibility that it would get extended one more time. She didn't,
that didn't phase.
Well, she didn't intimate that, hey, it's a non-starter if we don't do it tonight. So, I did tell her we'd call her tomorrow, so I think, we'll call her tomorrow, let her know what happened tonight, see what her response is, follow up with what the mayor said, do some reference checks, then do a final phone call with her, get that information out to the board, and, see what feedback we get from you. Obviously, nothing is approved until you approve it in a meeting. However, if everyone seems pretty satisfied that, they're in favor of it, all the questions are answered and it's something positive, there's a possibility that they could start to ratchet it up with the confidence knowing that, hey, you've kind of given your, the word that you're in favor of it. So let's see what she says tomorrow, and we'll send an email out to everyone and see if you have any final questions of her. I'll set up the calls for the reference checks, and then the follow-up call, with the mayor and myself with Leanne on the phone.
Thank you, Russell. So we now have our 2 public hearings. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to open up our first, the public hearing for our first local law repealing regulations for surfing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Russell, maybe you can take it from here.
Okay, so we've had 2 public hearings on this local law. Essentially, in front of the board is the question as to whether or not the board feels appropriate that a relatively long-standing village code that prohibited surfing between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. on June 15th through September 15th be abolished, and that the board would take a look at on an annual basis as to whether or not they wanted to pass a resolution that could prohibit it for the sake of argument based upon, the needs of or the changes in where the waves are, where the break is on an annual basis, it was felt as though this particular law was too restrictive, even though there was some flexibility that does say that the village board could pass a resolution stating where surfing could take place. Those who brought this resolution forward felt that it would be better to actually do it the other way, is that surfing be permitted, and that if there was a need to restrict it in certain areas, that the flexibility to work it that way was a better concept. So that's my understanding of how this was brought forward. Of course, there's been comments from the public. The Surf Committee, obviously has been put together. They are trying to get a meeting date to discuss, some of the regulations that they want to put around lessons, some of the rules they want to put in place with regards to how bathers and surfers can coexist. However, we did hear a lot of public comment with regards to in favor of abolishing this Section N of the local law.
Thank you, Russell. So I think the board knows how I, feel about this. I would love to have this language lifted from our books. I know this is out of season. This is from the 15th of June to the 15th of September, so it's actually not relevant at this time as it relates to surfing today. But still, I don't like the language that's in our books. I hope that we can repeal it. But at the same time, I know there is some other concerns as to whether we should do this or not. I'm open to board input. Happy to have a consensus here, and ultimately would just like to kind of do this in unison. So open to anyone's comments. I know we have discussed this. My inclination would be to vote to repeal it, but again, open to other comments here and also comments from the public, so we can take some public comment first, and then we'll go hear from our board. So if there's anyone who'd like to come forward, please feel free. I think you know how to do it, but
Michael Irving, Prospect Street, in Southampton, former mayor, so just to everybody know that. Opening surfing up to all the beaches. Surfing is a terrific sport. Jesse, I was surfing before you were born here, quite a bit. The difficulty you're going to come into is that surfing, despite the soft boards, has inherent safety issues. And if you're going to have somebody swimming at a beach, another individual surfing, that board comes in, even though they're a soft board, you get hit with those, and it's pretty much you're out of commission. The purpose of the previous law was that we could designate areas to surf. There was never in the village of Southampton a total moratorium on surfing. And that way we could control the safety issues of swimmers and surfers. That's your first issue. Your second issue, which I think is even larger, is that you were looking at having numerous surf camps available in the village of Southampton. I assume those surf camps you give parking stickers to, the trucks and all the guys that are involved. Parking at our local beaches have become a huge issue. You try to go down to Main Beach and park, forget it. On a weekend, all the surf camps are there, all the surfboards. The idea is to control what they're doing, control where they are, control the fact that they need restrooms. I went down to Main Beach today, 2 porta potties there. Somebody had used right in front of the beach there, the parking area, to do their thing. And that is the kind of stuff you're trying to avoid. We don't want that in Southampton. We want nice beaches. We want, as a resident, I want to be able to pull up on a weekend and park and go to the beach I want to. I have a resident sticker. So if you plan to promote surfing, promote the surf camps, you're going to have just chaos between parking and safety issues. And that's really all I got to say on it. Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to remind the audience and those listening here that this particular repeal does not discuss surf camps or the commercialization of our beaches. We have created a surf committee, which is comprised of surfers. It's comprised of bathers. It's comprised of everyday people, and we want them to get back to us and to advise this board as to what we should do in regards to commercialization and get many different opinions and let the community decide and get back to us on that. All this law is saying is that we are just essentially removing the language so the average person who wants to grab a board can go do it and is not acting outside of the law. And then in addition, Russell, maybe you can kind of help us here, but I believe this still allows us to pass a resolution saying if there's a certain bathing beach or a certain beach that would not be for surfing.
Right, similar to the ability to allow beaches, certain beaches to be bathing beaches under the current law, it is my understanding that the board could do the opposite, which is pass a resolution that would prohibit bathing for a particular period of time on a particular beach. Again, we would, run that, double check that through, legal and, but that is my understanding that the village, essentially, the purpose of this is to completely do a 180 on what we do now. Right now, we prohibit it from June 15 to September 15 and can pass a resolution that allows it on certain beaches. This would take that law out, and I believe that the village board would still have the ability to enforce no surfing at certain times at certain beaches.
I'd have to look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Mark Epley, 158 Harvest Lane, Southampton Village. What's the current status of the driving on the beach lawsuits? Since nobody responded,
Well,
I'm not
that's-
sure that the
Is that
status
rhetorical, or is
No,
that?
it's a serious question, because it's part of the lawsuit is in reference to Chapter 80 in the Village Code. So you're making modifications to Chapter 80 in the Village Code, okay? That one of the things that always concerned me was leaving that chapter alone until all the lawsuits were resolved. So you have the ability already to do in the code to do a resolution to identify beaches, exactly what you're talking about. Now you're modifying a chapter in here that's currently under fire in a lawsuit, a beach driving lawsuit, and I would say stay away from it.
All right, well, there you have it, our two former mayors giving us some advice. The good news is that we do have a new board, and so we can make our own decisions. I would like to open this up to any other additional public comment. If not, we can hear from our board.
So I stand where I was the last time. I'm not in favor of repealing it because I think not having a law doesn't make any sense right now. Rich, I think you and I were on the same page with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kimberly?
Yep.
So, like I said, we don't have to do anything right now. We still haven't really had much with the surf committee yet either. I spoke to one surf committee member, and he said he does not have a problem with keeping it right now. He feels having a law is a good thing. We don't want lawlessness. It's not hurting us right now. So we don't have to change anything until we have to.
I think it's good that we have the surf committee. I know Jesse and Mark, you pulled that together, and there's a lot of people of various, stakeholder interest on that, and I'd be very curious to see what they say. I don't know if they've met yet, but that would be my sentiment. But we are open for business for surfers. We just have to figure out the best way to do that.
And Trustee Polaro?
My position hasn't changed. I do feel having the law is better than not, especially when by trying to put something back on, we might have to go out to public hearing, we might have to do things, and then in light of what was said tonight about a lawsuit and trying to change laws that could be under a lawsuit, I'd like to hear what council has to say, and I'm sure you'll want to look into it.
You might, I would suggest, I will look into it for you. You might want to check with your litigation counsel who's handling that lawsuit to get an opinion. You don't want to do something that might
taint that.
Injure that case. So I would suggest you talk to your litigation counsel on that, and anything you want me to look at, I'd be happy to do that.
All right, again, it looks like we will not have a second here, so no point putting this to a vote. But I would like the record to show that I do support this repeal. I would vote for it today. But unfortunately, we do not have the support for that. And so with that, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Russell, is there a specific date?
I would adjourn it at least. I know that the Surf Committee does intend to meet within the next 2 weeks. They were trying to at least get a part of the committee together prior to tonight. the efforts just, it just didn't happen. I know there were some phone conversations with each other, but weren't able to put it together, although they are all now focused on getting together, and I would think they would in the next 2 weeks. My recommendation would be give them an opportunity to meet, make some comments to this board, maybe for the November 14th meeting, just about an update on the SURF committee, and I would look to adjourn this to the second meeting in November, giving us, a month to both let them meet, digest, and have some questions. That would be my recommendation. If
Why don't we do this? Why don't we just ask the members of the SURF committee to come forward? They can do it as a board presentation potentially, or another format.
Right.
And then we could just adjourn this as long as possible. It could be till even, March if need be.
What I wouldn't recommend is if you move it all the way to March, you might as well, close it with no action and renotice it, because the length of time would be so long that it probably wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to, have people just try to remember that we're coming back to this in 6 months. That's why the SURF committee may come back and have something that 4 other board members may say, given that perspective, I might be in favor of this. That's why I would recommend going 1 month out, and then if we feel that, hey, we're nowhere close, I would close the hearing with no action, and then renotice it in the spring if we needed to. That's my recommendation. What I would hate to have happen is to close it today with no action, get a report back that this is a good idea, or a good idea with some small modification. Don't forget that they may come back and say, this is a good law, except we think you ought to tweak it this way. If you do that and you close it, then we've got to renotice it and go through this whole process again. So it's certainly the board's preference, but my recommendation would be, if you want to put it way out, close it with no action, we'll renotice it, or adjourn it until November 26th. Yes.
All right.
So
How many people are on the committee?
8, 9, yep.
Did we find any moms?
That's what we got you for.
So, yeah, I know there is a member, at least one member that is representing, I'll say bathers. I think that's a better.
Yes, bathers.
All right, so that there is some cross-representation of interested parties.
Yes. So I guess the question that I'm asking is, do you want to just move it to the 28th and then, 26th, I'm sorry, and then...
I would be in favor of that, to at least go that far, to get weigh in from the... Quite honestly, Mayor, I know where you're standing on this, and I fully appreciate that, because I know the people have reached out to you, and they've reached out to me on the street and in restaurants and gin mills, if you will. So people have been very vocal to me about it, and I understand it. I was hoping more of them would actually be here, knowing that we're still discussing this. But I do, one way or the other, whether we repeal it or whether we keep it, there's flexibilities there. So I like the fact that there's flexibility with what we have already. That works with me. But I would really like this, Russ said. I'd like to see, we got 8 or 9 people with cross-section of different parts. I'd like to see what they come back with. That may make a difference. Who knows?
I think that could make a difference. I also would like to see what council comes back with as
And of
well
course,
for what happens.
and I was gonna say, that
if we
notwithstanding,
change
because-
laws and there's a lawsuit that this directly impacts.
Yes, that
What does that do, and how does that change? How does it change the lawsuit? And would that shift the way that our that we are looking at it, and what our action is in that lawsuit?
That
So I think that's
there is an aspect of that too.
So I would say there are times where you really have to look at it, who our community is, and who we're working for, and who we're not working for. And to repeal a law that says we can surf, that says you can't surf on our beaches, willing to take that risk in the sense that we need to know who our residents are. And so we should not be scared, one person or group, obviously. So ultimately, Again, I'm happy to just adjourn it to the 24th.
You know,
It's no problem.
I couldn't agree with you more that we have to know our residents and who we're working for. And while there are plenty of surfers in, and all 4 of my sons are surfers, I learned how to surf after I turned 40. We also have a lot of people who are not surfers, and this law currently protects them. It doesn't hurt our surfers, one, because we're in the winter season, and you know, and so it's not really in effect. I think we will have good resolution by the time the summer comes, and I hope that the Surf Committee will work, and even if they, you know, even if we close this with no action until sometime in the spring, I would hope that they would continue to work through it so that they can come back and present to us, and we can really come to terms with how we can do this and how we can work with it, especially coming to next summer. Because I do think, I mean, what I do like is I like that it's in place, that we can designate where we go in all of this. And that, to me, makes a lot of sense. Having a law on the book that allows you to make changes and where you do put up beaches, depending on where the surf break is. I would hate to see this repealed. I would hate to see the break at Cooper's Beach next summer. It is the only beach where we haven't allowed it, and people then saying, well, you don't have a law on the books, and even though you made a resolution, that's where the break is, so they're going to go out surfing, and that is the only beach where we have our lifeguards there, and the public goes and surfs a lot. So
We've already have a resolution saying that Cooper's is a bathing-only beach.
Right.
we have the resolution, but if you repeal the law,
The resolution still stands. Is that?
Again, I'd have to look and see, but we certainly could protect, I mean, what I'm saying is that you could protect it, and either way works. You know, what I'm hearing tonight is that we're, you know, certainly not ready to pass it, but I also have gotten the indication from the board that they want more input, and they're not necessarily saying kill the bill.
So right now, if we were to let this go till July, we would still have every beach being able to surf except Cooper's, correct?
No.
No.
You mean for the winter season, like, you know?
The
No,
question
till
is
June.
whether or not.
We did
okay,
nothing.
Right, okay. So there is a current resolution that was passed
Right.
by this board
Right.
that opened up swimming everywhere with the exception of Cooper's Beach.
surfing.
Surfing. What did I say?
Swimming.
Swimming. They can all, you know.
Talk about
They swim too.
Wait
They swim too.
My point
wait to
is
see the
this.
people come in. So the question is, my answer is this: we pass a resolution annually
Right.
for our fees, for our, you know, all of the rules of Cooper's Beach. So we must do that for a purpose. So I am not certain, again, a question that would have to be answered as to whether or not that resolution would need to be renewed annually or not.
So we're not sure.
That's a fair question. And I don't actually recall whether or not we even put a season, you know,
A time frame on it.
a time frame
Yeah.
on it. When we
And
passed it.
I mean, again, I like that it's in place now. I'm not opposed to repealing as long as we have something in place going through the process with the surf committee, with council, with all of it, so that we know we can protect certain areas and bathers and all of our residents who don't surf.
So the first section of what we're repealing, as the mayor said, is not relevant at this time, but we know it's archaic and has to be done away with. But the second section deals with protection and designation, and the two are intertwined, which is why my view is keep it in here. We know we don't want the first section, but you can't eliminate that unilaterally. It's tied to the other piece.
Okay.
So you're
with that
talking
said,
about-
Russell, what we should just vote to, we should make a motion to adjourn this. Actually, we've got another
Well,
public
I just
comment.
want to
Just state
clarify,
your name
Michael
one more time.
Irving, Prospect Street. It was mentioned by you guys that the lawsuit wasn't residents of the village. Well, I just want to correct you that all the individuals that are in the lawsuit are residents of Southampton Village. So you got to take a close look at Chapter 80 and see what it does to your regulations. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
So I hear a motion to adjourn this public hearing to the meeting of November 26th.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye. So the next public hearing is the local law regarding the vacant buildings and storefronts. I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Before we start, regardless of whether people are here to speak this evening on this public hearing, there was an error on my part. I had written in my notes that this was adjourned until our November 14th meeting. Therefore, I did not include it on the agenda that was distributed to the public. Therefore, certainly we would need to hear anyone who watched the meeting and listened and heard that you folks actually adjourned it to tonight. We would hear them, but I, in speaking with counsel, believe that we cannot close the meeting, close the hearing tonight, that we will need to adjourn it until the next meeting, so.
There's no plans, I believe, to close this. We still have a lot of listening to do on this one. So I would like to open this up to public comment to see if there's anyone who would like to speak on this. And if not, I think we can make a quick adjournment here and push this to our next meeting. And I think the goal, by the way, our board really should be to dig into this because we've discussed this for a while, and I think now is the time of year where many of our merchants are leaving, and either some are coming back, some are not. But I think this would be the perfect time at our next meeting to make the final decision. And I think the goal here is just to kind of go line by line, figure out what works, what doesn't work. I know we put forward a packet that East Hampton does that was very visuals, just nicely graphically done. I think we should either work on that or ask them for permission to use theirs, but ultimately be ready and in position at our next board meeting to make a final decision on this. And then I think we should also reach out again to the Chamber of Commerce. If any trustees would like to come, we all can do it. I think we should knock on a couple doors on Main Street and Jobs Lane and Hampton Road, just continue to spread the word, hand out some flyers, and just get people to come. And it'd be great to have some input from local merchants just to let us know what they're thinking here.
I thought Tim Mallon brought up some very good points last time he spoke.
Yeah.
So he's certainly, I think, clearly willing, and he was willing to participate in the ARC program and the window and so forth. So when you have people like him, he's certainly, I think is a good move.
They're undertaking a pilot with the Southampton Artists Association, and they sent us a very late-breaking email saying they couldn't attend tonight, so this will work out well.
Okay.
Yeah, and also, just think about it, Rich, I know I pointed that out to you the other day when I talked to you. The amount of people and businesses that have already stepped up and started to do it has been pretty impressive. So the two meetings have yielded some really good results that, there's some really interesting artwork in windows right now, and I think it's been a good thing to start, and I think we continue to listen. And with Tim Marin here last week and the people from the Artists Association, that was a collaboration that I think is going to be positive. And it just opens it up. And one of the things that we have been thinking about is from the beautification committee that Kimberly and I are on that we met with, I was going to speak about it later, but I might as well talk about it now, is we're looking into possibly tying in a holiday window decorating contest. With all the traction that's going on with this, it would be great to try and get some merchants involved and sort of, pilot with this and starting to bring a nice little unity for the holidays coming up. So we're working on it. I know Julie and I, we've looked at some other municipalities throughout the country, and there's some really good ideas, and we're going to reach out to merchants and we would like to get it starting with the Parade of Lights. So that will be the kickoff weekend. And then we could have the final day of announcing was approximately what we say, the 18th, Julie, we're thinking. And that way, you reach out. I've spoken to a few people already. They seem to be on board. So try and build a little bit of holiday vibrancy would be really nice heading forward. And then incorporating this whole new vision we have for the downtown and the vacant windows that can be filled with joy.
awareness is a good thing, because as that's what you said the other day, Mark, is there have been people making the change already and complying and doing these things all on their own without even having passed any
Tim,
form of
without
legislation.
having a law.
So I think that's pretty, that's pretty cool right there.
That was one thing Tim said.
Yeah.
He was very clear. Listen, we'll do it. We don't really need to always have a law. Just speak to us. So there's always that possibility that people are starting to say, hey, look, this is needed right now.
Yeah, so that's the good thing about it. So definitely.
One of the things I'll recommend is that I'll resend the whole packet from East Hampton Village along with this, and ask people to, coordinate, back to me by email, so that if there are some tweaks or changes that need to be done, we can get it to legal in time, that the final version can be on people's desks and distributed, in advance of next meeting. I think part of the problem in bringing forth a law that is a little bit malleable and that we're moving around with is how do we get from our initial, here's a draft, to, what do we want to get? So I will send an email out to all of you with those attachments, send the feedback back. The mayor can work with, mayor and Trustee Parish, who, I think are both kind of spearheading with everyone else, get the final comments to legal to do whatever modifications need to happen to this. And then we'll be ready for the 14th.
Thank you, Russell. I did want to mention one thing, is that in a conversation today with Phil Futterman, who owns the property on Hill Street, he voluntarily agreed today to take down the sign that says "Pop Up Here," and he did also agree to replace it with our decal with our village logo, which says "Eat and Shop Local." So we asked him. He was nice. He said he's going to do it. We also had a conversation regarding updated wastewater treatment and cluster systems, so he's excited about that too. So hopefully we can make sure that building, once completed with our new wastewater treatment, is vibrant and with
Lights on.
with lights on, exactly. So that's just a fun thing to mention. So we're happy about that. So with that being said, we can make a motion to adjourn the hearing to our next meeting on the 14th.
Yes, November
Okay,
14th.
that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. We now have communications to the board. We have Kathleen Harrington regarding the Moses Lane Park.
Okay.
Come on up. Thank you, Kathleen.
Oh, she's present.
Hi.
Good evening to you, too.
Did you get my letter?
It is in the packet, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I live on Corrigan Street, and the proposal has been made, or the suggestion made, that tennis courts be put up on that property. As you can see, I have concerns about flooding. There are, I believe, plenty of tennis courts available within the village. I fail to see that they're all being overutilized and people are clamoring for more. And I and many of my neighbors would rather see it be a quiet area, an area where you could go for a walk, an area that could be used for native plants and animals so that they have a place to go and we have a place where we could truly enjoy them. The village is getting more and more paved over. We have very little open space in residential areas anymore. And every year we lose more lots to houses and increase the problems of flooding and places for our native animals to live. I'm sure everyone is aware of the problem we have in the village with deer now. Not to mention raccoons and possums that have no place to go, and they're part of our community. We're losing our bird populations. We used to have purple martins in our neighborhood constantly. They aren't anymore, and they're very beneficial birds eating insects, and they're gone. So I wanted to speak up about flooding problems and trying to preserve an open space natural area.
Thank you, Kathleen. Now, the good news is that at a prior presentation, we had Edwina Von Gaal from the Perfect Earth Project and Tony Piazza, who specializes in organic landscaping, and we had discussed a plan to help make this a butterfly sanctuary, a wildlife sanctuary, a bird sanctuary. We had also discussed with Gary Gillespie, who's doing a great job on drainage, to make sure that our drainage is as good as it can be. Any paving, hopefully there'll be very little, be permeable. And so drainage using organic materials, native species, and sanctuary for wildlife, birds, butterflies, should absolutely be implemented here. So we do appreciate you mentioning that, and I know that's a goal of this board collectively.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen, thanks again. That was our communication to the board.
I do, if the board will indulge, after the agenda was sent out, we did get correspondence from the Commission on Veterans Events, and it's important that I bring up that they are looking for permission for the Veterans Day Parade, which would take place prior to our next meeting. So, it does fall under communications. And if I may, I'd like to bring that forward and see if the board has any issues with a Veterans Day parade as we normally have.
So move to give the authority, as we do every year, to do that.
Is there a second?
And
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I also received very late today, again, it was asked, as opposed to having a member step forward, he could have during open session, but a member of our Clean Water Committee, our Lake Agawam and Water Quality Committee, sent an update on kind of what's been going on in their committee. They wanted to give a brief update on some of their initial activities. One of their first steps they'd like to do is rename themselves the Clean Water Committee, a slight change from the Lake Agawam Water Quality Committee. They believe the new name is simpler and reflects the breadth of both the challenge and opportunity faced by the village. They've attached, which will be forwarded to you, as I said, this came in late this afternoon, some proposed changes to the mission statement. They also attached a draft one-page handout titled New Hope for Lake Agawam, and we intend this to be a framing tool that you and other village officials can use to hold meetings and discussions regarding the effort to improve water quality on the lake. And then lastly, again, summarizing, we think it's important to note that while some of our initial efforts are focused on Lake Agawam, this is only because Agawam is highly visible, has received particular coverage, and is benefiting from input, ideas, and actions that make it a real useful test case. The CWC believes its advisory mandate covers all bodies of water in the village, fresh bay and estuary, as well as groundwater. We expect to expand our efforts shortly to reflect the need to address all of the village's precious water resources. Sincerely, two members of the committee, Tom Luthan and Rob Coburn. So I just wanted to read that in because I do think it's relevant and timely, and our next meeting isn't until 3 weeks, and I think it's important that the board and the public realize that these committees are starting to form and be active. So,
all right, I'm happy to pass a resolution to rename the committee.
Okay.
If need be. Is that appropriate?
Is that our doing?
I would have it. I would wait until the 14th and formally do it. I think
right.
This is really just part of communication. I don't think it's necessary tonight, but we can do that as part of maybe the next meeting. So,
All right. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Okay. I think we can move forward to suggested resolutions. Russell, if you don't mind taking it from here.
Okay. Entertain a motion resolved that the reading of the minutes of the public session of October 10th, 2019 be dispensed with, and that those minutes be accepted as filed by the village administrator, and that the actions taken at that meeting be and hereby are ratified and approved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion resolved that the claims for the warrants dated October 22nd, 2019, totaling $935,908.91, warrant number 8, General Fund, and $203,693.67, warrant number 5, Capital Reserve Fund, be audited and approved.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, invoices over $1,000. General,
All in favor?
I don't have any resolutions in there. Someone stiff me.
Here, I can share. I'll share. So that's, we're on number 2 now.
Okay.
but you have the,
He has the invoices.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
The agenda.
That's good.
I have no idea.
In the
What
beginning,
are you doing to me?
I know.
I don't have the resolutions in my...
Agenda.
Yeah, can you give him the,
the
It should be
agenda.
right here where it says resolutions, right?
We have the agenda.
no, the reading of them's on your
Oh,
agenda.
my bad.
It's in the beginning.
I looked up, I apologize, everybody.
You did say you had a hard day.
Yes. All right. Always Elevator, Inc., $1,885. That's repairs to the Village Hall elevator. Fundamental Business Services, $7,266. That's commission on September Justice Court fines. Glens Falls National Bank, $62,940. That's the 2019 ambulance LoSAP contribution. Masiano Consulting, Inc., $1,680. September grant consulting and monitoring of grants. New York State Employees Health Insurance, $363,038.94. That's the health insurance bill for October. Optimum, $1,410.55. That's internet and data usage village-wide. Patriot Contracting Corp., $2,100. Underground conduit for between Mariner Drive and Williams Way in the village. Pershing LLC, $460,979. That's the LoSAP 2019 contribution to the fire department. Pitney Bowes Postage, $1,000. Rapid Recovery Towing, $1,915. That's towing expenses. Shade Trees Nursery, $1,288. That's 10 trees for the Parks Department. Southampton Excavation, $2,212. That's sand and topsoil purchases for the Parks Department. Sprague Operating, $6,928. That's 87 octane for the village fleet. Vincent Toomey, $2,427.30. Outside Labor Council. We have on the general fund for the capital disbursements. Denisi Energy Company, $8,990. That's HVAC replacement at the Southampton Cultural Center, previously approved by the board. Hirsch and Company, $132,667.50. That's plumbing at the ambulance barn. Rollins Electric, $48,450. That's electric at the ambulance barn. SCC Construction Management, $9,250. Construction management company for the ambulance barn. Watermill Building Supply, $4,336.17. That's materials for the Lake Agawam Boardwalk Improvement Capital Project, previously approved by this board. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the public hearing be held at 6 p.m. on Thursday, November 14th, 2019, in the Village Boardroom, Village Hall, 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York, 11968, to hear citizens' views on local needs with respect to the Community Development Program for the year 2020. The details of how that works is also in your resolutions packet behind the invoices that we just read. Essentially, the village participates with most of the towns and villages in Suffolk County in the Suffolk County Consortium for Community Development Block Grant. Annually, we get an allocation of generally somewhere in the neighborhood of $13,000. To be eligible to receive that funding, we are obligated to hold a public hearing and in order to get input from the public as to what we would like to do with that money. And then our CDBG project description forms are due back to Suffolk County by December 1st, 2019. They then prepare an action plan that takes until about March. And then March of 2020, they submit to HUD for a 45-day comment period. And then after that, we receive the funding for whatever community group that we feel is warranted.
Do you have any
Does that-
idea what they would expect to get this year?
Yeah, probably the
Fluctuates,
same,
probably
about
roughly the same.
13,000. In the past, we've been giving about 6,500 to Heart of the Hamptons and
Yeah.
6,500 to Southampton Daycare.
Yeah, generally the same two charities, local, that's
Generally
coming
the
up
same
over
two
the years.
charities. But obviously, we will have a public hearing to hear any and all.
So Russell, we had heard a number of different charities in the past, Heart of the Hamptons presents, but this says it's a public hearing held at the same time as our Board of Trustee meeting.
Yes.
So it's incorporated in, as it has in the past in our
Yes.
board?
Yes.
Okay.
People present. That's
It's
when
not
they
a
come
s-
in.
Right,
it's
but
not a
it just-
sing-
the way it reads, it doesn't sound like that.
I apologize. It's not a separate, it's not a separate,
That's
it's not
what
a
it said.
separate meeting.
Okay, just confirming.
The representatives come up and pitch their
Right.
concept for us for their share of the
Yep.
money.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russell.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Entertain a motion resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the closing of Elm Street on Thursday, October 31st, 2019, by the Village Police Department for Halloween festivities.
So moved.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Entertain a motion resolved that the Board of Trustees directs the village administrator to publish a notice to bidders for the Pierce Concert House Historic Restoration Phase 1, a building reconstruction, exterior completion, general construction contract.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees appoints Rose Diaz to the Budget and Finance Committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees appoints the following individuals to the Village Business Task Force: Gloria Dios, Danielle Candela, Shannon Wiley.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
On a motion, is my understanding that you would like to amend the
Yes.
resolution?
I'd like to make a motion to add Robert Ross to the list.
Is there a second to the amendment of the resolution to add Robert Ross to this resolution?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All in favor of the
Aye.
amendment? Okay. The underlying resolution, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I'll entertain a motion resolved that the Board of Trustees ratifies the rate for Alice Cooley and David Kirst at $185 per hour effective October 10th, 2019.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion?
Okay.
I'd like to ask council if, by us appointing them last time, not knowing a rate and approving a rate tonight, does that have any effect on the resolution that we passed last time?
I think there's a
Because-
personnel matter you might want to discuss in executive session.
Well, that was my next thing, was to table, well, then I'd like to make a motion to table this for executive session to discuss contractual issues.
Is there a second to table the resolution?
Second that. If that's what you want to go, that the council says we should put that in.
I mean, you're going to go back into public session, go back into
Yeah, I know.
public session.
Go back to
Announce
public
it
session.
anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I don't,
It
And you
just-
can always
it
make your
just-
motion
yeah.
at that time.
Yeah, okay.
It's just if
Yeah.
you're going to discuss contractual issues.
We have to do it there.
yeah, I mean, and so I just like to see what, and like to get,
Okay. So there's a motion and second to table the resolution. All in favor of tabling the resolution?
But we can come back tonight and.
You can come back to
Yeah,
It's
we'll
fine, I'll
come
go
back
along with
tonight.
it.
But,
This is at a
we're putting it
discount.
to our executive
Yeah,
session.
this is good.
Yeah, I would, to take
Again, the
counsel,
only-
I
the
would
only-
refrain from discussing.
yeah, I mean, the only thing, I'm not questioning, I asked a question about the ratification and all of that, and if the council is saying into executive session, then,
Based on the way that question is being presented, that's why the counselor would recommend it now go to executive session.
and so I make the motion
At
then
the end
to
of your
table.
executive session, you can make a motion to
Yeah,
go back.
Then we
to
come back into
session.
public session, and if all the questions are answered, then great.
So, was there anyone opposed? Okay, so moved.
10 minutes.
So we now have comments from board members.
Wait, I got one question. I had sent the email out Saturday asking to put a resolution in here regarding notice of agenda.
Right.
Right? Everybody got that?
First off, we need to stick to rules of order. We like to work according to NICOM, and so it is not in accordance with basic order of any board meeting whatsoever for any board member to just say something like that or try to do that until called on. The mayor is the job of the mayor and the mayor only to lead the board meetings. This is in accordance with the village handbook provided us with NICOM. And so I just want to make the motion on camera. You are out of order, and it is inappropriate, just so we're aware.
Even if I had to
Absolutely.
have a question? Interesting. All right. Well, then, you know what? It's something that we're going to have to talk about, because it was something that I sent to all the board members. I might be out of order right now, but I do think it's a question that should be answered.
You're still out of order. So we can. So we're going to move forward with comments from board members, and we can do that now. But ultimately, I just, I think what you might want to bring forth is good. But again, we wanted to put the agenda out at a certain time, and I'd like to stick to the order of operations here, again, in accordance with NICOM. So with that said, we're going to move forward with comments from board members. And Rich, you're welcome to kick this off.
Actually, I'm good for right now. If there's any additional comments, I'm good.
Trustee Allen.
As usual, and Nancy knows this, I always have my list. So for the first time in the upcoming general election, thanks to a bill passed in Albany this year, New Yorkers will be able to vote early. And that means it begins this Saturday, October 26th, and runs through Sunday, November 3rd, which is terrific for many people who may have a conflict or that day or work late or, so many, or have very bad weather and can't get out. So Election Day is still November 5th, but please check your voting location. I believe for the village, it's the Stony Brook Southampton Campus Gymnasium on 70 Tuckahoe Road. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, I wanted to just give a little overview.
It's too, yeah.
Sorry, Kim.
Sorry, am I wrong?
SYS is,
Right, I'm going to look.
we're doing,
SYS?
well, I know that we approved it as a board at SYS.
So
too.
sorry.
So just, I don't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, I'm
just
glad
want
you interrupted.
Russell will figure out and we can amend, but I do believe SYS is.
So I went online and I didn't remember that, so my bad. But the online information is now incorrect, so I'm glad we are confirming it. We should confirm it now. Anyway, the other part I wanted to relay is the number of different things we're working on and a sense of where we're heading. The mayor and I had a grant meeting, and as a result of that meeting, we now have a runway of about 6 to 8 grant projects to improve parks, wastewater, and revitalize the business district. These are underway, and I know you may want to speak to them some more, but the submissions start in December and they go all the way through to early spring, but there's a lot of work to be done, and at least we have a very clear agenda of what's out there and what available monies can be found. I know Trustee Parrish will be discussing the Village Business Improvement meeting. I had a very good senior committee meeting, thanks to our favorite person, Judy Johnson, Sandra Luss, Lori Collins, and Liana, I believe her name is. We are planning our holiday celebration on December 12th, so that'll be a fun event at beautiful Southampton Historical Society, and we also have Santa coming. We also are building out our Business Task Force Committee. As I mentioned before, we'd like to involve people who wish to think about the future of the village, integrate not only what we have, but engage what we want to bring in. We now have 4 terrific members that you all approved. Thank you very much. And this group will also help us pursue grants and other funding and any future investment in the downtown area. So that's all I had for this evening, and I just wanted to mention one thing, if you may want to mention, since you said it to me.
Trustee Allen, the website does only indicate that it is at SUNY Stony Brook, Southampton, so we will make sure that we get out to the public if if there's any additional or any changes. I do know that initially, I was part of correspondence that said it was at SYS, and as an SYS board member, I know you agreed that to have it there. So the website does confirm what you said, and we make sure that our website is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Parrish, thank you for that, and good job on the grants.
Well, we're all involved, but
I've got something I want to put on the camera for the public. As of November 4th through November 8th, we're doing some repaving. And I want to get this out because it will be good for the merchants to know as well as the residents. So starting November 4th, Job's Lane from Main Street intersection of Pond Lane, Hill Street, and Windmill Lane. Nugent Street from Main Street to Windmill Lane. Apron area near Chippy's Restaurant. Patch area in Windmill Lane between Nugent Street and Jagger Lane. Cameron Street parking lot. And Penny's Landing. These dates, they will have some closures on these roads. Full street closures for Nugent Street and Job's Lanes will occur typically. A street closure will last 4 hours on one day for milling and 4 hours on the next, so they will be closed for 4 hours each day. We are hoping to get this done, weather permitting, right on those dates. Everything's tentative to the thing, but I want this to get out there because it gives everybody a chance to prepare, especially the businesses, that they're going to have a heads up. I will be walking around in the next few days and handing them out to the businesses themselves and making sure they do have that also. Thank you. I want to thank the DPW. Big storm that came through last week was pretty hectic. Trees went down, a lot of branches. They were on it. They were out a lot during the night. I saw quite a few of them the next morning. The village looked pretty darn good in a couple days after with a quick storm that came through and was pretty intense. Also, the Lake Agawam railing is finished. It looks beautiful. So that's all now done, tied down to the a whole length of the walkway. So it looks really good. So good job on our staff for that. Like Kimberly, Trustee Allen said, we had our first beautification committee meeting on Friday the 17th. We met with four members, some current, some new, and we're really excited about a vision we have going on with it. We're looking into some open spaces for native plantings. We're looking for a really, really, really grand, vision for some of our entrances to the villages, and we really have a top-notch team on board, and so it's going to be real fun to get that reinvigorated and get going. And Nancy, I know you were the one who started this all off, and your name was mentioned a lot in that meeting the other day, so thank you. And I have a tall task, but I got some pretty good people, so hopefully I can take care of that as well as you did. Thank you. And the last thing is on November 21st at the Southampton Cultural Center, there is going to be a comedy show. It's called United We Laugh. It is something that I happened to go to back in September. It is basically a stand-up comedy to stand up to break through. It's bridging the racial divide through laughter and conservatism. And Jim Banks, who is the head of the Southampton Town Anti-Bias Task Force, I got to know him, and he invited me to one in Hampton Bays, and I went. And it was really, really, really enlightening. And it was a great opportunity to bring it to Southampton, and the Cultural Center is going to do it. And I encourage everybody to go. It really is something that is engaging and enlightening. And I walked away from it and really was just really moved. So it is November 21st. It is a Thursday at the Southampton Cultural Center. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Parrish. We now have Trustee Polaro.
I'm okay with comments this week.
Thank you. And as far as comments here, there's a few things I'd like to add. One thing I'd like to introduce to our board is a change in format of our meetings. I think that one board meeting, as we do today, would be great, coupled with one work session. So for example, today, we didn't have a lot on our agenda. Today would have been the perfect opportunity to do a work session, perhaps not even on the dais here, but at the table for public to listen, but to get more input from our trustees. I think that'd be the appropriate format. This way, each of our trustees and myself, we could speak about what our agendas are. We could work a little bit better together as a team and get outside this more rigid format here and enter into a work session. So I would love to obviously put that idea forward. I was speaking with the mayor, the newly elected mayor of Sag Harbor, and in Sag Harbor, they do one public meeting and one work session, and I think that we should at least consider moving to that format each month. I think it'd be a great opportunity, again, just to discuss what we have on our specific agendas. So that's one thing to put forward. I'd also like to create the Mayor's Award for Excellence in Arts and Culture. There's a number of people in our community who have done a great job. I would specifically cite our leaders at the Art Center who have really stepped up over the last several years, and I think candidates like that would be deserving. So something I'd like to do is kind of create this award moving forward so that members of our community could receive it due to some of their recognition. Other things that are going on, we have the Mayors and Supervisors Conference in Southold on Wednesday. We perhaps, one of us will be attending, but it's a great opportunity to meet with other local officials and get in the same page and see what's going on in other villages and towns across the East End. There's a great group there. Fred Thiel is there. State Assembly person Tony Palumbo is there, as well as some of our town leaders. So great opportunity for the village to network and discuss some of the current trends going on. I also just wanted to mention, it's a small thing, but I like that we did it. We have taken down the signs at Village Hall that say, your lack of preparation is not an emergency on my end. We want to start a new chapter here, and so we're here to provide good customer service to our residents, and our team that works here is all about that, and so I'm very excited. We do have a new hire. Her name is Master Sergeant Kathy Sweeney. When Eileen retires, I'll be appointing her to the deputy clerk position. I wanted to thank Eileen for her tremendous work over the last decades. She is hard to replace, and she's done an amazing job. And I know she was our Employee of the Month at the last meeting, but everyone should get to know Master Sergeant Sweeney. She recently retired from the Air Force in West Hampton, and I think that bringing someone in with a military background would be a great fit for Southampton, and we know she's a hard worker, and so she has very big shoes to fill, but I hope and I'm confident that she can do it, and so we're excited to announce that as well. And then finally, and maybe most importantly, I wanted to congratulate Rich. Cole Yastrzemski became an Eagle Scout this past month, so I just wanted to congratulate him once again. It was a phenomenal ceremony, and obviously you know better than anyone how his hard work has paid off, so just wanted to give you some recognition there, give you some love, and
Thank you very much.
and just wanted to mention
Here
that.
for Cole.
We're very proud of it.
Any parents, proud parents.
It was a long journey, but thank you.
So that's all for me. So if there's a second public comment, if anyone would like to come forward, feel free and state your name. Sure. Okay, Rob, I knew you were ready to do it.
Hi, Rob Coburn, 345 Hill Street. I just wanted to weigh in on the half marathon. Everything sounded good to me, but I would echo what Trustee Allen said. If there's a way, if I heard the chief correctly, his team comes in May 15th. If there's a way to consider the 16th, because a lot of people have already figured out that the weekend after Memorial Day is a quote-unquote quiet weekend, and that is a weekend that traditionally, I don't know what their calendars are this year, traditionally it's been the weekend for the History Museum House Tour and for the Fresh Air Fund, which are both big events in the village. Now that might not interfere with something that finishes by noon, but I just wanted to put those. It is actually a busier weekend than we think, because people have figured out it's not a busy weekend. Other people have done it. So if the 16th worked 2 weeks before, if the staffing's here, I would just recommend giving that consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
My understanding, the 16th, there's a running conflict elsewhere. I'm sorry?
It's also potentially the weekend that the American Heart Association does their cycle ride.
Right.
So we have that
Right.
event.
That's right. There you go. So there is a conflict on the 16th, which would have been after the 15th, obviously, but
Is that when that comes?
Thank you again, Rob. And you've been working hard on various boards and committees, so thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward with public comment? Okay. With that said, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purpose of discussing contractual litigation and specific personnel matters.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.